Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A veteran member of the Windsor Police Services is facing 7 charges of discreditable conduct. We have the details on that tonight. Plus, a Windsor man has been without his vehicle for 9 months waiting for a part. He's concerned about the condition of his car as it sits at the dealership. And today marks 20 years since the tragic Pelee Island plane crash. We share with you the CBC report that was done following the accident. A high-ranking member of the Windsor Police Service is facing 7 charges of discreditable conduct. It stems from allegations that surfaced last year against Inspector Ed Armstrong. CBC's Jason Vio has been following this story and joins me now with more. Jason, what happened here?
Well, all the Windsor Police Service is saying right now is that these are allegations of misconduct against Inspector Ed Armstrong. Now, it's unclear exactly what he's being accused of. Windsor Police said today in a news release that they asked Peel Regional Police to conduct the investigation, and they say that decision was made to ensure a transparent and impartial process. Now, Armstrong is a 25-year veteran at the Windsor Police Service. He's still working, but they say has been reassigned to alternate duties until the Police Services Act process concludes. Now, these are not criminal charges, but rather a form of internal discipline that will involve hearings. Because this is before the tribunal, the Windsor Police Service said it won't be commenting on this matter. But in that release, they did say Armstrong is being accused of something that has the potential to undermine public confidence in Windsor Police.
Jason, you've known about this for weeks. Take us through how this all unfolded.
Let's look at a bit of a timeline just to see how things truly unfolded here. So CBC News received tips last month that Peel Regional Police completed an investigation into Ed Armstrong. Now, on December 21st, we reached out and they confirmed that, in fact, that investigation was done. Now, later that same day, CBC News emailed Windsor Police for more information about the findings of that investigation. No response. And again, on January 9th, we emailed them about this same matter. No reply either. Then today, January 17th, the Windsor Police issues a media release confirming the Peel investigation and the fact that Ed Armstrong has been charged with discreditable conduct. Now, what Windsor Police didn't mention in that news release is how many charges Armstrong is facing. We only found out that he's facing 7 Police Service Act charges after we independently asked the Professional Standards Branch. Now, his first appearance is scheduled for February 12th. Now, earlier this week, we learned another officer is under investigation, this time by Ontario's Special Investigations Unit, over sexual assault allegations. It involves an officer that the SIU isn't naming to protect the privacy of everyone involved. The alleged incidents took place between 2011 and 2023. Now, Windsor Police did clarify today that this SIU investigation is not related to Armstrong. And Armstrong isn't the only high-ranking Windsor Police officer under investigation. The Ontario Civilian Police Commission is reviewing circumstances around a stunt driving charge against Deputy Chief Jason Crowley. He has since pleaded guilty to speeding, but questions remain around how police investigated the Crowley incident, and it's unclear when that OCPC review will be finished.
Thanks so much for that, Jason. That is the CBC's Jason Vio. A Windsor man has been without his dream vehicle for the last 9 months, despite paying a hefty monthly car payment. Now he's worried the car is deteriorating on the dealership lot. The CBC's Jacob Barker brings us that story.
Pushkar Kapil is driving around town in a Hyundai Venue. This was never the plan when he bought his 2018 Mercedes-Benz CLA 250 2 years ago.
It sucks and it's really bad.
Kapil is a bit of a car enthusiast. Buying a Benz has always been on his radar.
I was a big fan of Mercedes from my childhood.
But it's now difficult for Kapil to justify the $1,000 per month payments on a luxury car he can't even drive, instead forced into a rental worth far less.
I work as a security guard. I work really hard to afford everything, and now I'm really struggling for that.
This all started last April when he brought in his Mercedes-Benz for a recall fix. It was related to the power steering. What he didn't expect is that he'd still be waiting for a part to come in.
Yeah, I miss my car a lot.
The rental is paid for by the manufacturer, but it's not just the fact that he can't drive his car. It's sitting outside, and he says it's losing value as it waits, corrosion on the brakes, and he worries about the state of the motor and battery.
I used to care about my car, I care about my car a lot, and The way they treated my car is really bad.
In another strange twist, 2 of the wheels were stolen off the vehicle. He says he only found out about the theft after he noticed it.
My tires got stolen, and I never knew about that.
The dealership, Mercedes-Benz Overseas Motors, says it's replacing those wheels at no cost, and the manufacturer approved a servicing of the vehicle while it's being held. Mercedes-Benz Canada says that supply chain disruptions have been creating delays in parts availability across the industry and says the car will be fixed by the end of the month. Hamoudi Rafi, who is a vice president with Rafi Auto Group, which operates the dealership, says that it's been an interesting journey getting needed car parts since the COVID-19 pandemic. He also says there are others in a similar situation waiting months for their vehicle back. One automotive consumer advocate says that automakers haven't fully recovered from shortages created by the pandemic, but there would be a way for those like Pelee to take matters into their own hands, finding a part in the used or third-party markets.
Dealer won't do it, but you can do it. And in that case, it would be on your dime, but if you were able to get them to order the part, you'll at least get your car back on the road.
And while owning his car has been a bit of a dream for him, he says because of this experience, he's done with Mercedes-Benz.
No, I won't get one again.
Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Several residents on East Puce Road in Lakeshore are upset over damage done to their mailboxes. They say a snowplow is to blame while clearing the road last Friday. CBC's Dale Molnar has more.
This letter carrier had to deliver to the door at 376 East Puce Road today because the mailbox across the street looks like this. Neighbors also had their mailboxes either knocked over or torn off completely. One door over, the residents say it happened to theirs and several mailboxes after a county snowplow came by during the storm.
The mailboxes in our neighborhood were all knocked to the ground, torn off their 4x4 posts. Many of them were cemented into the ground, and they were torn off the cemented posts as well. The county has told us that they will not be replacing the boxes because the plows itself did not hit the box, but rather the snow coming off of the plow hit the mailboxes, which they are somehow not responsible for.
Donaldson and her husband had to put their mailbox in a garbage can so Canada Post could put mail in it. An official from the county sent an email to her that stated the county bears no cost for mailboxes damaged or destroyed by snow and ice, and included a policy statement from the Essex County Highways Best Management Practice Manual. The county will bear no cost for the repair or replacement of mailboxes that are damaged or destroyed as a result of the displacement of snow from the roadway and the fulfillment of the county's obligations to the traveling public. But as far as Donaldson is concerned, whether or not the snowplow hit the mailboxes or threw snow at the mailboxes, the county should still pay to replace them.
The point of the matter is their actions caused our mailboxes to be damaged, and they're saying they're not liable based on their own decision.
Now the residents are faced with the cost of replacing the mailboxes, something they can't do while the ground is frozen, and the cost of having Canada Post hold their mail until they can replace the mailboxes. CBC reached out to the county for an interview, but was only sent a statement that repeated what was sent to the residents. Donaldson says they have only lived on the road since 2021 and can't say if this has happened before. She says she may ask local representatives on county council to bring the matter forward. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Lakeshore.
Today marks 20 years since the Pelee Island plane crash. A flight leaving Pelee Island headed to Windsor crashed into Lake Erie shortly after taking off. All 10 people on board died, creating a tragedy felt decades later. This piece was done by former CBC Windsor reporter Susan Pedler.
A U.S. Coast Guard icebreaker has spent more than 24 hours agonizingly close to the wreckage, but ice packs, extreme cold, and freezing rain made any kind of rescue attempt impossible. That was difficult news for family members of the victims of the crash, who tried their best to keep up hope. All 10 people on board are now presumed dead. The pilot, his friend, and 8 passengers, all on a day-long hunting trip to the island.
Can't be down that far either.
The daily plane service is the lifeline for the 200 people who live on the island year-round. In the winter, it's the only way on and the only way off. Dave Bracken was on the island's shoreline, walking his dog when the plane went down.
It sounded like the plane was having some troubles. for about 10 seconds and I heard a bang, like something going into the ice.
This afternoon, the Ontario Provincial Police Underwater Search and Rescue Team took a helicopter tour of the crash site, then headed back to the mainland command center to plan the recovery.
The plane, a 1998 Cessna Caravan 208B, is lying in 24 feet of water, completely submerged. There is a debris field approximately 500 by 100 feet on top of the ice.
So far, there are few clues. A Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker from Sault Ste. Marie was on its way to the crash site late Sunday night. It'll be used as the platform for the police dive team. It also has a crane they hope can be used to lift the plane right out of the water. Susan Pedler, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
ER wait times are up. According to the most recent numbers, people who went to emergency waited on average more than 22 hours to be transferred to a hospital room. The actual number could be longer as the most recent data available is from November. Today, the health minister was asked about the wait times. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redicop has more.
Emergency room doctors say it's common for patients who need a bed to wait much longer than the average wait time.
They'll be in the emergency department 24, 36, 48 hours before they end up going to their spot on the hospital ward.
The visual that many people have seen is orange EMS blankets of paramedics and silver and gray lined beautiful hair poking out from beyond the blanket. And this is tragically the symbol of Ontario healthcare if you come to the ER right now.
I'll have to follow up on that, sorry.
Okay. The health minister fielded multiple questions about ER wait times while making a separate announcement. Numbers show the average wait before admission is 22.4 hours. The average time before a doctor's assessment is just over 2 hours. Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto has the longest wait in Ontario at 4.5 hours. The health minister says the government has already added money for hospitals.
This is not a money investment conversation or challenge. It is making sure that we have sufficient health human resources out in our communities to serve our communities.
I would agree to disagree on this point. Just because I think human resource is also money.
The opposition NDP also doesn't agree with the minister's assessment.
I found that a really, really strange statement.
He says the government needs to invest by paying hospital staff more.
If you don't invest, you lose staff, and then you have a problem. And I think they're just ignoring the simple reality.
One Toronto ER physician says staffing is a big part of the problem.
One nurse for 26 patients. It blows every standard in our country out of the water. And this is what I've personally witnessed in ER recently.
The opposition NDP wants the government focusing more on public health care, not increased privatization, and putting more scans and surgeries in private clinics. That's what the minister's announcement was about. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
Health authorities across Canada are warning about a sharp increase in cases of invasive strep A. While it's usually associated with milder infections, the bacteria can be very dangerous and it can turn fatal fast. CBC's Lauren Pelee reports.
We'd always read a book before bed.
Christina Heckes says her daughter Quinn started feeling sick last March, just a few weeks shy of her 6th birthday.
We did the things every parent does, the Tylenol, the Advil.
By phone, a doctor told Heckes it was likely just a lingering cold. Suddenly, her daughter took a turn.
Her breathing is labored. Nothing's happened with her fever. It's been 3 days. I said, okay, that's it, no more. We're going to the hospital.
X-rays showed Quinn had pneumonia, and later tests showed her organs were failing. She died within hours.
I don't know how to tell other people how fast it was. My daughter was sitting, watching a movie, having a conversation with her nurses, and not 6 hours later, she was gone.
The cause, a common bacterial infection. Group A streptococcus is usually linked to milder illness like strep throat. But in some cases, bacteria invade the bloodstream, rapidly causing sepsis, even death. New national data provided to CBC News shows infections have spiked, with 4,600 reports of invasive strep A by the end of 2023, the highest annual total recorded in Canada.
So we've been seeing an increased level of invasive group A streptococcal disease.
Ontario officials say in that province, 48 people have died this season, including 6 children.
It's really difficult, of course, for the families and those caring for them. It's something we're tracking closely.
2 people have died so far this year in New Brunswick. And in December, BC officials warned there were twice as many cases of invasive strep among people under 20 than the province expected. Warning signs include a fever, dizziness, confusion, or intense pain. Those symptoms require fast medical attention and antibiotics. But
even though that's the right drug for the right bug, there isn't a 100% success rate.
Lauren Pelee, CBC News, Toronto.
Happy to report we saw the sun today. Kind of makes up for those below average temperatures. Your full weather forecast coming up after the break. Josiah Sinanen is back for our weather forecast. Josiah, we saw the sun out there today. That was lovely. That was nice. But those temperatures are relentless.
Yeah, it was still a chilly one, but believe it or not, Meg, we are seeing temperatures on the rise today. So we started off coming out of a very frigid evening last night with those around -24 wind chill temperatures, but throughout the day we've slowly gotten warmer. So right now we're sitting around -7. That's pretty consistent overnight, and the temperature will again be on the rise as we fall asleep tonight. So let's take a look at what's happening. Tomorrow, Thursday, a break out of that cold snap with a high of only -3, which will feel a bit of a relief after the past few days. Friday, a high of -5, periods of snow throughout both Thursday and Friday. Saturday, we're seeing a high of -5 with a 40% chance of flurries. And Sunday, holding to its namesake, sunshine on Sunday with a high of -2. Monday, those clouds roll in again, but the temperature on the rise, a high of -1.
Well, that seems like a good forecast Sunday for the Detroit Lions game.
Absolutely.
I understand that for Afternoon Drive today, you were looking into a special Windsor event that's going to be taking place tomorrow evening. What's going on?
Yeah, have you heard of AWE at night?
I haven't.
Okay, it's pretty cool. It's Art Windsor Essex, and once a month they open up the museum for after-hours exploration of the galleries. They also have special exhibits and community discussions, and tomorrow they're having an interesting chat that might be worth checking out.
Museums are always intriguing to me after hours, you know? I think there's a movie about that or something. Can you tell us what that chat's about?
Yeah, so the chat is called Who Pays? Arts Investment in the Rust Belt, and it's a discussion surrounding the arts funding in our city and others like it. And one of the speakers will be our multicultural community storyteller, TJ Travis. We had him in the Afternoon Drive studio earlier today, and he's hoping to bring up how many artists we do have in this city, especially considering the size. And he wants to learn more about how funding could be better dispersed. And this is a great chance to learn as well. One of the panelists will be representing Detroit, which he says has always been able to attract great arts funding, even in the hardest of times.
And what kind of art has the city invested in?
Yeah, there's so many great examples of that, Meg. In fact, TJ mentioned the sculpture garden by the riverfront as a great example of how our city approaches art. Of course, this is a very dynamic installation that was a big investment for our city, but he's also saying that art has become somewhat something we're accustomed to, so we don't always take time to appreciate how essential our artists are and how they become the building blocks and legacy of who we are as a community. So it was a great chat. You can find it on CBC Listen.
And let's quickly hear a little bit of some details about that event.
Yes, if you want to check it out, tomorrow the museum's open from 5 to 9, admission's $10, and that community discussion with TJ Travis is from 6:30 to 7 on the 3rd floor galleries. So worth checking out. There's also going to be some refreshments and a DJ and full museum access at night, so who knows what will happen.
Sounds like a blast. Thanks, Josiah.
Thank you, Meg.
Coming up, hundreds of Spanish animals were brought to church for a special blessing. We have that story coming up. A recent surge in aggression by Iran is triggering fears of a wider conflict in the Middle East. Iran and its proxies have stepped up strikes against neighbors and indirectly against Israel and the United States. The U.S. has launched its own attacks against Yemen-based Houthi rebels allied with Iran. Now Washington has labeled the Houthis a terrorist group, and Canada is considering doing the same. CBC's Sasha Petrusik has the latest.
Houthi fighters celebrate on the deck of a seized cargo ship. Undeterred by Western airstrikes, they vow to keep attacking Red Sea shipping. Backed by Iran, which encourages them to fight till victory, as it does other militant groups in the region, all of them enemies of Israel and the U.S. Now that Iran itself has fired missiles at 3 of its neighbors this week, fears of an escalating conflict in the Mideast are growing, sparked by war in Gaza. Iran's latest strike landed in Pakistan, where officials say 2 children were killed and others wounded.
We have also informed them that Pakistan has decided to recall its ambassador from Iran.
Iran says it was targeting a Sunni militant group here. Terrorists on Pakistani soil, says Iran's foreign minister. He says other strikes were aimed at Israeli spies in Iraq and ISIS militants in Syria. That's raised anger in Iraq and the possibility of more fighting across the region, something the U.S. says it's trying to contain by designating the Houthis as a terrorist group.
Gave us the tools to deny the Houthis access to the financial system and gave us the tools to impose additional actions, additional sanctions on anyone who does business with the Houthis.
Some of those sanctions may be directed at Iran, a needed approach to discourage its interference in Yemen and elsewhere, say experts.
Figure out a plan to ultimately deal with Iran to staunch these flows of weapons and material and funding going into these countries, or else this is just going to continue. The cycle of violence and terrorism will go on for, another 4 decades? And that's what we're up against.
Canada is also considering designating the Houthis as terrorists, giving Ottawa similar tools. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
For weeks and weeks, residents in northern New Brunswick are still chasing the ace. There's now more than $7 million on the line. Last night, for the 47th week in a row, no one captured the most wanted card, the Ace of Hearts. The growing jackpot is getting a lot of attention. More than 500,000 tickets were sold just last week. Players have been driving in from across the Maritimes, Quebec, and the U.S. to play the lottery. And Chase the Ace players buy weekly tickets to stay in the game. If their ticket is drawn, they test their luck at picking the Ace of Hearts out of a deck of cards. The lottery is run by a local ATV club, which splits the proceeds with a regional healthcare foundation. It was a special day for some precious pets in Spain. Priests blessed hundreds of them to mark St. Anthony's Day. He's the patron saint of animals. The pets and their owners gathered at a church in Spain for the annual event. The priest delivered mass, and most animals waited patiently to be sprinkled with holy water. The priest wasn't distracted by the few dogs that barked. St. Anthony is known as the patron saint of animals. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.